Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Katerina Ratajczak, and I am the Best Starts for Kids Capital Program Manager. Thanks so much for being here today. To start out, my colleague Dave is just going to give a couple logistics notes on regarding Zoom. Dave, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is a Zoom meeting, so we have some meeting protocols we use. So this is kind of a disclaimer we read at the beginning, and that brevity in questions or comments helps more people ask more questions and comments. Be respectful and civil in your questions, comments. Do not personalize comments or questions, and please don't use offensive language such as profanity, vulgar, racist, or otherwise offensive language. For public comment, the comment needs to be regarding this particular grant, although this isn't really a public comment meeting. So, but if it's best to focus on this BSK capital grant, not another BSK program, for example, that may be doing services. Thank you. And that's it. Have a great meeting. I'll be here monitoring the chat and the participant list.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave. And a couple other notes: to ask questions during the meeting, you can add them to the chat box, or at the end of this meeting, we will have a virtual Q&A session where you can raise your little virtual Zoom hand. And then again, this meeting will be recorded. So welcome to the Best Starts for Kids Capital Program Info Session number 2. So a little bit about what we'll be covering today. It's an hour session. I'll give some context on Best Starts Capital overall. Then we will talk about the RFP that's open for Priority 2. We'll talk about the background, the content, applying, as well as scoring, and then we'll close out with a Q&A session. So to orient ourselves, Best Starts Capital is part of the larger Best Starts for Kids levy. And Best Starts for Kids is guided by 4 words, and those are happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. So we want to see babies born healthy, kids thrive, and young people grow up to be happy, healthy, and successful adults. So what is Best Starts Capital? Best Starts Capital is a new program under Best Starts for Kids 2.0. And it will be the first year in 2023 that we're funding projects. So Best Starts Capital will be providing contracts for renovation and new construction of facilities that serve low-income children and BIPOC communities. And the facilities that we'll be funding will include recreational, early learning, childcare facilities, community centers, and housing. And Best Starts Capital is guided by an implementation plan, the Best Starts for Kids implementation plan, which was approved by King County Council in November 2021, and it was informed by extensive community input. And the BSK implementation plan outlines both 4 different priorities for funding and focus areas for the program. And these focus areas include providing culturally responsive youth programming to specifically low-income and BIPOC communities or communities lacking similar facilities. There's also a prioritization for geographically dispersed funding, so funding for facilities all through King County. And then we are also focusing on funding facilities that are multi-use, intergenerational, sorry about that pop-up, guys, located in rural or low-income areas, and then proximal to transportation. And just to be clear, within the RFP document itself, we have definitions of what all of this actually means. So definition of multi-use, definition of intergenerational, so on and so forth. So this RFP specifically will be focusing on funding the second priority within the Best Starts for Kids implementation plan. And we'll be focusing specifically on funding repair and renovation to existing multi-use community centers, early learning centers, and childcare recreational facilities, specifically to address critical health and safety issues. And we'll get into a definition about that later in this presentation. And for a little bit of a high level orientation, $4.7 million is being made available in this funding round. It's currently open on Zoom grants. It opened on April 14th and it will close May 26th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So it'll be open for 6 weeks. The funding request limit, the most you can ask for is $500K. And based on information that we've collected prior in a request for letters of interest that was open in November to December of 2022, we anticipate potentially funding 8 to 12 projects, though this is just an estimate and is absolutely subject to change depending on how many applications we get. And then I just want to paint a bigger picture on timeline here. So like I said, the RFP was released on April 14th. We had our first info session on the 25th of April. We are having our second info session today. The final day to initiate requests for technical assistance is May 19th, so 1 week before close. The application due date is May 26th at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then that will be followed by a period of rating and reviewing by a panel of reviewers, and that will be approximately between June 9th and June 23rd. And we're anticipating notification of selected and non-selected applicants in July or August of 2023. And I do want to caveat that this timeline is an estimate and it is subject to change. So this is just giving you guys an idea of what we're anticipating at the moment. So to get a little bit more into the nuts and the bolts of the RFP, we'll move on into definitions, minimum qualifications, and eventually go into scoring criteria and applying in Zoom grants as well. And I do want to acknowledge that the next couple slides are really text dense. But I do want to note that the full RFP document and the attachments and library in Zoom grants has all of this information. So this is just to get you guys oriented, but this will not be the only place that you can see these definitions. So we're going to be funding critical health and safety repairs in this RFP. So what is a critical health and safety repair? We created a definition with other folks in DCHS, as well as folks in environmental health and safety at the county. And we're defining critical health and safety repairs as renovations and repairs to address critical health and safety issues, including the following. So 1, eliminating or reducing hazards such as lead, mold, or other harmful substances. Repairing or replacing roofs, walls, and floors that are structurally unsound. Improving accessibility per ADA to reduce the risk of trip and fall. Repairing or replacing ventilation or heating systems to provide good indoor air quality. So for instance, heating, ventilation, HVAC, air barrier work. This also includes remedying foundational issues, so sinking and cracks in foundation. Repairing or replacing deteriorated systems, including plumbing, fire, mechanical, gas, and electrical. Ensuring that operations and maintenance are done properly and per local code. Replacing or installing additional energy conservation measures, so improving insulation, improving window seals. And then repairing gutters and or drainage to prevent moisture damage and mold issues, as we do see happen in our region. And there are minimum qualifications that folks will need to meet in order to be considered for this funding. So first and foremost, you must be completing a critical health and safety renovation or repair per the definition that we have outlined for this program. You must be working on a facility that is a qualified facility, so a community center, a early learning center, a childcare, or a recreational facility. At this time, we will not be considering any other type of project. The request that is put in cannot exceed the $500,000 limit, and you must be a rehab or renovation project. So again, we will not be funding new construction or expansion of facilities as well. That's for future priorities, so not in this RFP. Further, the applicant must have a site that is owned or leased with adequate documentation, which we'll go into further in this presentation, with the caveat that if the site is leased, the organization that is leasing the site must have owner support of proposed renovations. You also must be an organization that serves King County in order to apply for this funding, of course. And then we also require that folks are serving low-income children, youth, and families, with the priority for those that are serving either BIPOC communities, rural communities, and or areas that don't have physical access to similar facilities. And again, those definitions are in the glossary of this RFP. We also require that folks host culturally responsive programming for folks. And then beyond our minimum qualifications, there are also desired qualifications. And these are really aligned with the priorities that are outlined in the BSK implementation plan. So we're looking for renovations and repairs for facilities that are multi-use, intergenerational, close to transport, and have outdoor covered space. We'd also like to see applicants that can assemble a design, architecture, engineering, and or contractor team, and potentially has experience managing a construction project or financial systems that can track income and expenditures, as well as report performance measurements. And then another desired qualification would be an applicant that is leveraging other capital investments, for example, King County's PASTA funds for early learning facilities.
Pat, we have a question in the chat about rehabbing a building. Do you want to handle that now, or would you want to wait later for questions and answers on that?
Yeah, we'll hold that until the Q&A. Unfortunately, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually read the chat. So we'll save that if that's all right for folks. Okay, great. So we also have some ineligible activities. So we ask that folks consider the following as not qualified for this grant. So non-construction materials and equipment. So if you're asking for funding such as technology like computers or printers, toys, games, outdoor playfield equipment. We also will not be providing retroactive funding. So that is payment for goods or work that happened in the past, services that have already been delivered or performed. We won't be covering transportation or travel, staffing costs or other salaries, emergency funding, or mortgage or utility bills. So who should apply? Folks that meet minimum qualifications, nonprofits, community-based organizations, tribes, for-profit organizations, and public agencies that serve King County. And then we really do encourage small nonprofits and CBOs to apply. We want to lift up new and emerging organizations with this funding. So once you have determined if you are eligible or not, what will you need to submit in order to get your application in? So in Zoom grants, you will need to submit your summary and application questions, which is a list of about 17 questions that will give us a good picture of what your critical health and safety repair project is. And then we will also require a series of documentation that will be submitted in the documents tab of Zoom grants. So, and we'll go into this further as well, especially as we go through a little tutorial in Zoom grants at the end of this. But we'll be requiring that folks submit a timeline, a budget, organizational financials, organizational charts, staff resumes, site control, an optional site plan, and then site photos. And there are detailed instructions on what this includes in the library tab of Zoom grants. So directions on what that looks like. So again, we'll get into that a little further in the end of this meeting. And then how to apply. So make sure to read the complete RFP document in Zoom grants, go through the documents in the library prior to starting your application. Make sure that you're aligned with this funding. Applications will be submitted via Zoom Grants at this link right here. So zoomgrants.com/VGF/DSK Capital. And if there are issues in Zoom Grants, you can also submit via the dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov email address. You can also find the Zoom Grants link on the Best Starts for Kids website and blog. And we really do encourage folks to submit materials early and make sure they check Zoom Grants often to ensure that the applications are delivered on time, and we can consider them complete that way. And then one thing to note, Best Starts for Kids also offers free technical assistance as support for applicants, which is really a way to eliminate barriers as they work through grant applications. So there's a series of things that TA providers can provide. So for instance, determining if you are eligible for this funding, providing guidance on how to answer questions, supporting review of your application, such as editing, working through attachments like budgets and timelines, with the caveat that it is not grant writing. And then also there is a note that this TA is also available in other languages. So reach out directly to TA providers and get the support you need there. And just to note, there is an attachment in the library tab of Zoom Grants where you will be able to see the TA providers information. And so, okay, we have applied, we determined eligibility, we submitted everything in Zoom Grants. What does scoring look like? So scoring will be based on the following matrix, as well as a more in-depth scoring guide, which you'll also find in the library tab. But ultimately, we have several different sections that we're scoring on with different weights based on the impact and importance of those sections. So high level, we will be scoring based on feasibility and scope, proposed budget, organizational experience, community served, and equity and social justice, which will add up to a total of 170 points. There's a comprehensive scoring guide in the library tab, which really outlines what a good response looks like and what we'll be scoring based on. And the review panel will be comprised of both DCHS and non-DCHS and non-King County folks who are subject matter expertise, have subject matter expertise. So additional resources, email all RFP questions to dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov. We won't be considering any other questions to other emails. So for instance, my personal email or other King County email addresses binding. Do make sure to contact TA providers directly for support. And do take a look at the glossary of terms for a list of relevant definitions as pertains to this RFP in the library tab of Zoom Grants. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to let Joanna give you all a Zoom Grants tutorial. And then we'll move into a little Q&A session after.
Thank you, Kat. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joanna Armstrong. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the RFP lead for this RFP. I put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to follow along. I'm going to walk through the Zoom Grants tutorial for you and answer any questions you have. So just give me one moment to share my screen. All right, hopefully you are all seeing the opening page for the Zoom Grants application. So this is where you are going to go to submit your application for this RFP. You do need to be logged in. This is a little tricky to read, but you can see here you do need to be logged in to apply. You do not need to be logged in to view. So we're just going to walk through the view right now. You would log in up here in the upper right-hand corner. And if you do not have a Zoom Grants account and you need a new one, you can click this little bubble here that says New Zoom Grants Account. So when you log in, you'll see for this program 2 rows of blue boxes. And this top row is all the information about this RFP. So you can show or you can hide. So if you want to see everything, you can go ahead and click this for the RFP overview and scroll through just to get an overview of the RFP. This is the eligibility, the minimum qualifications, desired qualifications, and ineligible activities. You can find that information here on who can apply. If you would like application assistance, as Kat mentioned, you can go to attachment D for a list of the consultants who can help you with your application. And as she mentioned, they can provide in-language support for anybody who needs assistance in another language. And the library tab, which Kat referenced, is here. This is where hopefully you will come by and visit often. This is where we have all of the documentation for this RFP. This one in particular, if you click here, it'll open up the document here, and this is all the information about the RFP. It includes, you can click here to go directly to anything you want to see. There's the timeline, the scoring criteria, anything you need to know, please open up that document. And attachment D is the bios and experience of all of our assistants, consultants who can help you with your application. So please go there to see how to contact them for assistance. The other thing you'll see in the library tab is any amendments to this RFP. So if we need to make any changes to the RFP, or if we need to post questions and answers that have come in, you'll see them here. Anytime someone asks a question, we do note it and provide both the question and the answer in an amendment so that everybody can see all the questions that have been asked and all the answers that we've provided. So everyone has access to the same information. And that is all going to be in the library tab here. So that's the top row of boxes. The bottom row of boxes here is the actual application. This is what you're going to fill in. So this first tab, summary, is all of the information about your organization, the zip codes in which you'd be providing services. This here is some unscored questions just to give us an idea of who you are and what your project is. And then this tab here, the application questions, includes all of the scored questions. So the way that you can fill these in, these are check boxes. You just go ahead and check those boxes. If it's other, you can enter in this text box here. And anytime you enter into a text box, there's two ways to submit your information. The first is just to type directly in here. If you are to type directly into this text box, there's no save button. The way that Zoom Grant saves is by clicking anywhere outside of the text box. When you do that, you'll see in the center of your screen a word pop up that says saving. It'll flash saving, and that lets you know that it has saved anything you typed in here. One quirk that happens with Zoom Grant sometimes is it gets stuck on saving. It'll be flashing saving for a couple of minutes. And when that happens, the only thing you can do is hit the refresh button and reload the page. And sometimes it saves what you entered and sometimes it doesn't. So one thing that applicants will do instead of typing text directly in there is to type it into OneNote or Notes tab or Microsoft Word, and then copy and paste that text into this box here and then click outside for it to save. If you decide to do that, another quirk of Zoom Grants is that it does not play well with formatting. So sometimes it'll save if you have formatting and sometimes it will not. Formatting includes bold, underline, bullet points, anything like that. So we encourage you to clear all formatting before pasting. And if you continue to have issues, you can reach out to Zoom Grants directly for technical support. And their email address is questions@zoomgrants.com, or you can email me, and my contact information is, you can either click here directly to say contact admin, or you can email me at dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov. So then the final tab for you to look at here is documents. We do have several documents that we'll ask you to upload. Each of these is a document request. Some of these are required, and it'll say required here in highlight if it is. And if it's not required, we won't have anything in there. So for example, here, attachment A is the application questions. So you have the option of either filling them in directly here, or you can download the template here for the questions, answer it in Microsoft Word, save it, and then upload here if you don't want to enter your answers in this tab. So either one is an option for you. So just please go through this tab and make sure everything that's required has been uploaded. This blue button here is how you'll upload documents. If there's a template for you to fill in, you'll see download template. It is a hyperlink. You'll just click on that. Your browser will download it and you can save, fill in the information, and then go back here and click upload. Please note, Kat did mention that we cannot accept late applications. So if you're getting close to the deadline and you're having any kind of technical difficulties, please don't hesitate. Just email everything that you have to dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov just to make sure it gets in. If you submit late, we likely can't accept your application, but if you at least email it to us and then continue trying to get Zoom grants to work for you, then at least you'll know that your application is safely in. And we also encourage you not to wait until the last minute, which is 2 p.m. to submit your application. A lot of applicants will often try to be on Zoom grants at once, which slows the whole system down. So your likelihood of having technical difficulties will increase the closer you get to the deadline just for that reason. So I'm going to stop sharing now and see if there's any questions for us here.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I appreciate it. I now see the question in the chat. So Catherine asks, to clarify, if an org is rehabbing a building that wasn't historically a community center, but they're turning it into a community center, it does not fit this eligibility, correct? What if they have been providing very light programming in that space? I think I would need a little bit more context as to what you mean by historical and what light programming means. But yes, it is, the funding is for rehab of existing facilities that are rec centers, community centers, early learning, childcare facilities. So I'm happy to connect offline to get a little more information on that, or happy to get a little more info here as well. I see Ashley's hand up and then another in the chat. Ashley, if you want to go first, that would be good.
Sure. Thank you so much for this helpful information. I work at El Centro de la Raza. I'm just curious how much of the funding needs to go to the actual critical repair versus how much could be used for more cosmetic aspects of a project.
It will all have to go to critical repair. We
So
will
the
not be
HVAC,
considering.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will not be considering more cosmetic renovations. That will actually fall under priority 1 funding, which will come in fall of 2023. So we'll have to focus entirely on critical health and safety with this round of funding.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ashley. Okay, Rebecca says, what if the facility is currently closed? Again, I think I would need a little bit more information. How long has it been closed? What services are provided? What critical repairs are needed? Again, happy to connect offline. Okay, Fernando says, would sewer line repair fall under these priorities? Yes, absolutely. That is a critical health and safety repair. So thank you for that question. And then I see iPhone 38's hand. Okay, no, Jing Fong, RHL. Okay,
Jing.
Hi, sorry. I only saw part of your name there.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I'm Jing
good.
with RHL Consulting, and I'm one of the TAs along with Catherine. But I do have a question with regard to eligibility for expenses, and that is, I understand that you won't fund equipment such as recreational equipment or whatnot, but it gets a little tricky if it's a kitchen renovation. What if it was a hood fan or a stove, that kind of a thing?
Well, first we would need to determine if that was a critical health and safety repair, first and foremost. But equipment that is vital to the operations and maintenance of a facility wouldn't be considered equipment in the same way that a computer or a play equipment or non-vital piece of equipment would would be. So again, that would be sort of a case-by-case basis. And I would also need to get some more information as to how a kitchen repair would be determined as critical health and safety. Because the first thought is maybe not, but
Right.
yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of gray area. So if we
Yep.
were working with a client, or if an organization was to
Mhm.
inquire, I imagine that your advice would be ask the question right away and then submit that
Yes.
question to your
To
general.
DCHS contracts at kingcounty.gov. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And can I just add one little thing? You did
Yeah.
mention to organizations that TA or technical assistance consulting is available. And I just wanted to say that you've got great people
Yep.
to get help with, and to get us on board right away if you need any help. Even if you have resources, it helps to get feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah, such an invaluable resource. And thank you for making that note.
You're welcome. And thanks to the county for budgeting that too.
All right, I see Fernando's hand and then Garrett's hand. So Fernando, if you want to go first.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Similar questions. What about repairs to bathrooms if they're in really bad shape? Would that be also considered under the priorities?
Yes. If there is detrimental disrepair to a bathroom that is used in a facility, that would be considered critical health and safety. You're reducing exposure to potentially harmful substances. So yes, if it was truly in disrepair, that would qualify.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, Garrett.
Hey everybody, my name is Garrett Pasco-Moore. I use he and pronouns. I work with Parkour Visions, a partner on the Garfield Superblock project. This project includes land that is part of the community center as well as land around it that is owned by the city. Would the BSK Capital Program funding only cover eligible activities on the community center land, or could it extend to land off of the community center property?
Do you mean areas outside, or do you mean a facility space that's used for?
Yeah,
like
both.
for instance, what would it be used for?
Yeah, both. So,
Okay.
This includes land that is still part of the community center, but is literally outdoors.
Mhm.
Also land next to the community center that is owned by the city.
Yeah, so I would say the outdoor space that is associated with the community center could be funded. I would say space that is not associated with the community center would not be funded. And then, of course, the outdoor space would have to be considered a critical health and safety repair. So an example of that would be, repaving a play place that is uneven and folks are tripping and falling. So as long as it would be a critical health and safety repair, yes, outdoor space would be fine.
Great, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Hunter. Sorry, but you are on mute. And if we can't get your mic to work, you can always type it in, whatever works for you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. I just unplugged my headphones, but
No worries.
hi, I'm Hunter Wetchy and I'm representing University Heights Center. And I just had a question about, we are partnering very closely with one of our resident organizations in sort of a fiscal sponsor way.
Mhm.
How would we go about submitting some of those materials? Would you suggest submitting both of our organizational charts or just University Heights Center?
I would say the more the better, but when in doubt, always reach out. There's nuance to all of the different applications. So yeah, I would say go ahead and lean towards the side of providing more information than less.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for your question. And then, okay. Catherine says, as one of your many trusty TAs out there, ditto what June said about X. Yep, absolutely. Use TA 100%. Such a valuable resource. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand.
Kat, I will mention there was one earlier that if people didn't read it in the chat, that's useful because Joanna answered it too, is there a date for last day to ask questions? And Joanna answered it. The final date to ask questions is May 12th. So just there in case people didn't see that in the chat.
Thank you, Dave. That is helpful. Yes. And while folks are thinking of any potential questions, I'm just dropping the email in the chat just so everyone can have it handy.
As questions about eligibility come up for you, please do reach out to the TA consultants. They can really help work through the details. As Kat said, it is the details and the nuances matter. So a TA consultant can really help you decide whether this project is eligible for the application. And please do email me at dchscontracts, as Kat just put in the chat, with any other questions.
And also just to clarify, Fernando, so what's the email where we can ask for TA support? Do go to the library tab of Zoom grants and you'll be able to reach out directly to TA consultants via that, that 4-page document in the library as well. I will give a couple more minutes for questions. We can sit in silence if need be, but I just want to make sure to give folks the space to think about questions. Not looking like anything else is coming up. Appreciate everyone coming, and of course do reach out to TA consultants and the DCHS contracts email with any questions that may come up. We're happy to answer any of your questions, and again, appreciate your time and your interest. All right, thank you all. Have a good day.